If you hear mysterious noises and sounds, if you hear your name called when there's no one around, keep going, dear listener. This story is for you. I hope it will accomplish what I wrote it to do. In these words, you will find all the tools you'll need, so that when you're faced with unimaginable things, you won't react with fear, as most people do. You'll be equipped, calm, and able to see the truth. My best, Hedy. This is What We Keep Hidden. By Lauren Nicole. Chapter 16. Storm. This guy is getting angrier by the second, kid. We should start packing up soon. Don't want you heading back in a storm, Betty said as she pointed to the sky with her chin. Only a few potatoes left on my end. We should make it in plenty of time. My voice wavered with uncertainty as I followed Betty's gaze toward the ominous clouds gathering above our heads. When you're done with this row, why don't you and Lucy start heading back? I don't want you catching a cold on your way. And leave you out here to finish all this? I asked sarcastically as I gestured to the many baskets full of vegetables littering the garden. Then you tell your mama that I tried to get you home at a reasonable hour. Don't want her thinking I put your health at risk for this child labor. No, she knows how stubborn I am. I get it from her. I started grabbing the baskets on the ground and running them inside the house. First the eggplants, then the onions, the garlic, the squash, and finally the potatoes. The funny thing about summer storms is how they catch you off guard and shock you, literally. As I ran back and forth, the chilled wind whipped my hair across my cheeks, upsetting my nerves, who were already shocked by the biting cold after adjusting to the warm summer air these last few months. By the time I had brought in the last basket, the skies opened up and poured out the raindrops they had been hoarding. I put up the hood of my raincoat and raced toward Betty, who was trying to collect the last of the tools on the ground. Just leave them, I yelled over the roar of the raindrops hitting the ground. They'll rust, Betty yelled back. I'll get them then, I shouted as I took her arm and led her away from the garden and onto the path to the house. You start heading in. Betty nodded gratefully and made her way to the porch as I ran through the now soaked dirt rows, slipping in the mud occasionally. I didn't mind though. I may not like the cold, but I must be a pig at heart. I just really love mud. I collected the few tools left on the ground, opened the shed door, and threw them in haphazardly. A low rumble in the distance rattled my bones, and I raced over to catch up with Betty on the porch. She had almost made it to the steps when I reached her. Here, I said, catching my breath. Let me help you. I reached out and took Betty's elbow to support her as she climbed the stairs. Oh, thanks, kid, she mentioned under her breath. Finally, I thought to myself, she's actually letting me help her. Not a second after I took her arm in mine, she faltered on the second step and fell into me. Just like Lucy did for me, I pushed back instinctually and held her up before she fell to the ground. Oh, she cried out. Oh, are you okay? Yeah, kid. Oh, thank God you were here. Steadying Betty with an additional hand on her back, we attempted to get her up on her feet and onto the third step when she recoiled in obvious pain. Oh no, I muttered nervously. There's a special kind of fear of becoming the caregiver when you've only ever been the one receiving care. Oh, Betty said, defeated. Let me sit. On the second step, a misplacement of her foot in a puddle had caused her to slip and twist her knee out of alignment. "Nope," I said, surprising myself with the defiance that escaped my mouth. "Not in this downpour. You can sit when you're out of this rain. You'll catch cold." Determined, I ducked under her and placed her arm around my shoulders, supporting her as we slowly made our way to the chair. Lucy, recognizing the pain Betty was in, came to her side and allowed Betty to place a steadying hand on her back. As soon as we reached it, Betty collapsed into the chair, visibly exhausted as she held her aching joint. Okay, she reassured herself. "Why don't you take an umbrella from the closet and start making your way home with Lucy?" "Absolutely not. Stay here." I winced at the obvious mistake I just made, seeing as Betty was immobilized in her present condition. "I mean, just rest now. I'll get some towels and start a fire." Betty nodded. Poor thing. She was in too much pain to think about anything other than compliance. For the first time I can remember, I took my raincoat off outside my own home. I left it near the front door before I raced into the house and upstairs to the linen closet. I pulled down a huge stack of towels and blankets, even handing some to Lucy, who carried them in her mouth as I filled her vest pockets with any extra washcloths and dish rags I could find. Betty was in no condition to warm up with a shower, so before I went downstairs, I made sure to bring some dry clothes for her to change into. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a quick movement by the reading chair in her bedroom, giving me pause for just a second. I glanced over my shoulder and saw nothing out of the ordinary, so Lucy and I hastily made our way back downstairs. If only I had remained a few extra moments, I would have seen the old man, hiding in the shadows, watching our every move. "Lean back. We have to put that leg up." Betty eased herself onto the couch in the living room. I had already covered it in a layer of towels and had stacks more on hand, ready to bundle her as soon as she was settled. "Oh," she moaned as she raised her hurt leg. Holding under her calf, I helped her prop it up on a few pillows, then covered her in a whole mess of towels to get her as dry as possible after being caught in that torrential downpour outside. Humphrey had, in fact, followed us, supervising the effort to get Betty inside and warm. Approving of the job so far, he hopped up on the couch and curled up next to Betty's head at the top of the couch cushions. "Oh, what would I do without you, kid?" I knelt in front of the fireplace and threw some kindling on top of the logs. I smiled back at her. "Glad we'll never know." Striking the match against the bricks in the fireplace, I stared at the budding flame for a few moments and whispered, "Help me keep her warm," before tossing it into the fire. The little flame must have heard my plea, because it erupted into a roaring fire immediately on contact with the kindling. "Thank you," I whispered to the flames. "Oh, that fire feels good," Betty exclaimed from under the mountain of towels and blankets. "You can't possibly feel it under all that yet," I joked. "Well, it looks good, so it must feel good," she rebutted. Betty logic. I rolled my eyes as I took a seat on the coffee table in front of the couch. "And don't you forget it. It's vitally important in this life," I chortled. "Now go call your mother. She's probably worried sick." "Oh, right. Okay, I said, waving my hands in the air. "I'll bring back some water and snacks, too. Then we'll get you into some dry clothes." "Okay, boss," she said as she closed her eyes to rest. The whole house felt damp and sticky with this summer rainstorm. It made my clothes stick to my skin in a most uncomfortable way. Now that things had calmed down, I just now noticed the squish in my shoes that made its presence known with every step. Ew. Ugh. I wouldn't be able to do anything until I got these shoes off my feet. I sat down, cross-legged on the tile of the kitchen floor. From this vantage point, I could see indirectly into the parlor and spied Lucy curled up in front of the fireplace, taking advantage of the warmth in this uncharacteristic cold. I smiled, surprisingly content during all this chaos. I took off my soppy shoes and placed them in the corner of the kitchen before going to the phone on the wall. I reached for the receiver, and a few inches from making contact, I paused when I felt the slightest breeze tickle the hairs next to my right ear. Chills scampered up and down my spine, as if conducting an electrical current. Before I could even start to analyze what I just heard, a deafening boom shook the walls of the house. Startled, I recoiled and drew my hand back, just in time before a single blue spark of electricity traveled down the receiver. Uh-oh, I muttered under my breath. I knew that sound. The sound of energy leaking out from anything with an electrical power source. And with that, the entire house was plunged into darkness. "What the hell was that?" I heard Betty scream from the parlor. "Hedy, are you okay?" "I'm fine," I called back reassuringly. "Power just went out." As soon as my eyes adjusted, I followed the glow from the fireplace back to the parlor. Lucy met me at the doorway, ears perked and on high alert. I could make out the outline of Betty sitting up under the blankets. Two glowing eyes peering up at me from under Betty's chair told me exactly where Humphrey was. "Oh, that was some close thunder," she said in astonishment. I don't think I ever saw Betty scared before. Who would have thought? Thunderstorms are what she's scared of. "Yeah, I'm pretty sure it hit the house." "No," she asked in disbelief. I nodded. I caught sight of a small spark making its way down the phone within seconds of the boom. Happened as I was about to call, too. Betty's eyes widened. "Oh, your poor mother. She's going to be worried sick." She put a hand on her head to quell the growing worry. "I know, but she knows where we are. Plus, we have walkie-talkies, and we've always used the same channel in case of emergencies. Do you have a radio I can rig up by chance?" "Slow down, MacGyver," Betty chuckled. "I have a whole mess of emergency supplies in the basement, including two-way radios." "That's perfect!" Wait, you have a basement? Aren't we in earthquake country?" "Oh, Hedy, this house is old. The old farts back then didn't know what they were doing when they built it. But yes, the door's right there. You've passed it 100 times. The small one, under the staircase." Of course it was that door.
Hey there, it's Hedy. Do you want to join our H&B secret society? I might even be able to convince Betty to share her famous butterfly PT recipe with you. We'll see about that. For now, head on over to laurennicole.art/stories to see how you can get your official member badge. See you soon.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of What We Keep Hidden. Tune in next time to see what Hedy and Lucy get into next. What We Keep Hidden is written, narrated, and produced by Lauren Nicole. This has been a Lauren Nicole creation.